if I see the comments and there's a question that I think is good, should we answer it?
We'll get to that in a second. Good evening, everybody. Come on in, grab a snack, grab a drink, have a seat, sit on down. We are now doing a primetime special of the JB show on Fred Hampton Left. That's live. I got my homeboy here, non-villain felon, Michael Tanuvasa. We're gonna be getting in some subjects. This is gonna be something difficult for some people to hear, but this absolutely needs to be talked about because especially on the left, and this needs to be talked about more often because number one, some people just don't know and they need to know. Number two, we need people, especially in the hood, to be able to know that we hear them and we understand them. And without them, we can't make the change that is absolutely necessary for everybody. Mike, you're looking dripalicious today with everything you got on. Me, I'm looking kind of plain. Maybe I should have stepped my game up a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, but I understand you guys are under COVID conditions. You guys are sweatshirts and sweatpants. I get it.
Exactly, yo, bro. How many sweatpants I got? Um,
How many?
hold on, one, two, three, four, probably like 5 or 6 pairs, man.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
week.
Yep, the whole week. Plus, I'm on dialysis, so I go for comfort. I don't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't do like anything overly formal because if I'm there for 4.5 hours, in one spot, I got to be comfortable.
No, I feel you on that. I gave blood before, so I understand how annoying it could be like to sit there.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you're the type of person that always has to move. Yeah, yeah. It's tough for a lot of people. So, yo, Malik, what's up?
So
Welcome.
no, go ahead.
Hmm. What'd you say? What'd you say, Mike?
No, I was waiting for you.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad. Okay. So we talked partially about how you grew up, living in the hood and whatnot. Um, you had said that you wanted to ask me a question about how I was brought up. I think that was one of the first questions that you had. Did you hear what I asked? Hello?
Not really. It kind of like cut. It kind of cut off for a little bit.
Oh, okay. No,
Like I,
you were asking me about my own experience living in the hood growing up.
yeah, because all right. So I do think it's important that people understand there's more than one experience. Obviously, mine's a certain isolated one where like I grew up around gangs and
Yeah.
criminals. My and like it was part of like the fabric of. I mean, both sides of my family are generational criminals, like going back generations and stuff. That's just how we made money.
Yeah.
Um, there's the other side, which is your side, where parents do try to keep their kids out of that lifestyle. They try to protect them from it with reason. Like, it in a different parallel universe, you could be in prison right now.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
if you done something growing up, and I understand like why parents want to like protect their kids from like that, because like I wouldn't want any of my kids to like be in a gang. I wouldn't want them to go in a gang. I know if I
Yeah.
went to back to my block right now, one of the kids would definitely be joining a gang.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because someone's gonna look at that lifestyle and they're gonna think it's awesome. They're gonna think it's cool,
Yeah.
and they're gonna see the money. They're not gonna see college as like as fascinating or as exciting as selling dope,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. Um,
They're
you
they're
know,
not gonna understand like, the
I'm sorry, you cut in and out a little bit.
Okay, yeah, it is cutting in and out too.
Mhm.
But they're not gonna understand the consequences of like prison and like, you know, there's real violence that you have to see when you're just selling drugs and selling dope. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I got stabbed in the back.
Mhm.
I was in the I was in a 3 coma because I got stabbed in the chest, and I was in ICU for 3 days, and I thought I was gonna die, and then 5 minutes later, I wake up in ICU, and they tell me 3 days have passed, and then I
Whoa.
also time, which ties into Medicare for all. I got hit with a $90,000 a night medical bill because I didn't for getting attacked,
Wow. You know,
and
man, that's
yeah,
crazy.
and the only reason I survived is because the knife stayed in my the knife stayed in my chest, and it
Mhm.
cut in part of my heart and went straight into my lungs. And people make jokes about like when I say like I got stabbed in the heart. Well, I did get stabbed in the heart, you know,
Mhm.
and I think it's funny because like they can't imagine that. Well, your body's resilient, like it does survive that type of
Mhm.
situation. And it's not like I got stabbed full in the middle of the heart, but cut into part of my heart and
Mhm.
all. I almost died. They called me the emergency room nurses and docs. They were coming into my room after I got moved from ICU, and they kept just like watching me and gawking at me and stuff. And I asked the nurses, I'm like, why do these people keep coming around wearing scrubs? And they said that they thought you were gonna die. You came in with a knife, a 6-inch knife into plugged into the hilt into your chest, and what looked like full in my heart, and they did not think I was gonna survive. And they were calling me like a miracle patient.
Mhm.
And that's actually like my come to Jesus moment because I thought I was going to die on my way to the emergency room. So
Mhm.
for that to happen, and then like 3 days later, I wake up and I'm like, how the hell did I survive? And I just kind of thought like, well, maybe there is a God. I mean, like, you know, maybe God intervened. And like for a while, up until that point, I was kind of an atheist.
Mhm.
Now I'm like, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. You
Mhm.
know, I don't go to church like crazy, but
Mhm.
um, and I don't follow everything in the Bible. Like I'm pro trans, pro gay, pro abortion,
Mhm.
or pro choice, um, and obviously pro women. Like I don't necessarily agree with the parts in the Bible that talk about women have to wait for their husband to like have an opinion.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was a big moment for me, was surviving that and
Yeah.
all, and that happened after I got clean, got out of jail. Because
Gotcha.
uh, yeah, I went back to my block to visit some homies, and I dressed like this,
Mhm.
and looks like I'm dressing like I'm still selling dope, but I'm not. And all but I still have some money left over.
Mhm.
Allegedly, according in case the IRS is hearing, allegedly I had some money left. But
Mhm.
and you know, I look like I'm still selling dope, and someone tried to rob me because they knew me
Mhm.
and they thought that like come up on a ton of cash because I used to carry around like 5, 10, sometimes 15,000 in cash because I had a gambling habit too, and I was always going to the casino a lot. And
Mhm.
then also like if I sold a kilo, I would have like easily like 10 to 12, 20 grand. It's not like
Wow.
I'm putting it in the bank.
Mhm.
I can't put it. I had to run my money through a business that I had started with a friend. It was a wholesale warehouse business, and I
Mhm.
had to like run my money through it at the same time off of it. But that's how I tried to like stay under the radar and all. And one of the eBay accounts did get audited at one point.
Mhm.
We had like clean up work allegedly. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, that to be honest, like it's not like I'm in Samoa number one. It's Chinese allies, so like I can say a little bit more than someone in LA can say. It's
Yeah.
not a they don't give a fuck. They don't care at all about American authority. Hey, look, this is all like 10 years ago. They don't care about me.
Yeah.
Like they're happy that I'm clean and I'm not out there. To be honest,
Yeah.
they're out there. I'm not out there. I'm not out there scamming. But
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think it's important your perspective too because not everyone is like from a family that's involved in gangs. Not everyone is from a family that's involved in drugs. And
Yeah.
there's also like,
Mhm.
how was that for you? Like, how did your parents like?
Yeah. So for me, it was I grew up very religious. Um, and so through me growing up, um, it was a lot of church, basically 3, 4 times a week. And on top of that, also preaching from door to door uh, on the weekends.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, so you would see me dressed up, knocking on doors, offering literature at your door. Many people know what religion that is. uh,
yeah. Jehovah's Witness.
yep, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I was one for almost 20 years. So
Wow.
yeah. Um,
How did having kidney dialysis issues like?
well, I'll eventually get to that, but for us, it was always my mom. My mom was always the one who was pushing that, you know, don't hang out with certain people. Um, and she wasn't a domineering person. She just
Yeah.
always provided reasons as to why we shouldn't do the things we do, which is one thing I appreciate. My mother always gave us a reason. And because of that, um, I stayed basically relatively, clean my whole life, as far as being obedient to what the law says. So it's like, yeah. So that translated to my teenage years and even to my young adult years. Uh, so much so to the point where 2 years ago I smoked weed for the first time. So
Wow.
yeah, so I had never had weed before, nothing like that until 2 years ago.
I think I
Um,
started when I was 13, and then I started smoking weed with my dad when I was like 15.
wow, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people, they start very early, but my mom, smoking cigarettes, anything like that, is heavily looked down upon, and you could be disciplined for it, especially in the church and the congregation. But um, that my situation as far as dialysis, I've always had issues with my kidneys. I had a
Yeah.
biopsy when I was 9 years old, and I started having kidney failure symptoms even in my teenage years, but I just passed it off. I wasn't even thinking about it. And growing up, by the time I was an adult, I started feeling like a lethargic feeling in my body, and that lethargic feeling uh, started uh, started having an effect where I felt like I had the stomach flu and a cold at the same time. So that was crazy. Um, Stomach flu and cold at the same
Even
time, and uh, blurred vision and dizziness all at the same time. I was in my early 20s at the time, so Uh, Once I had that at work, my family was like, "Go to the hospital. You need to go." So I went to the hospital, spent 7 hours in the ER, and they told me that I was one of the worst cases in triage, and they took me back, took blood tests, and they told me that there was something wrong with my kidneys because the numbers were just not right. And I spent 12 days in the hospital. They put me on kidney dialysis. It Yeah.
How does that work out with the Jehovah's Witness? Because are you guys allowed to go to the hospital?
Oh, yeah. That's one thing, a lot of people don't know. Jehovah's Witnesses deeply believe in science. They just don't believe in blood transfusions. But, because, I mean, from what they see what the Bible says, you shouldn't, eat or take blood inside your body. Um, but other than that, like all forms of scientific research and study and using it to save your life, they fully believe in. So they encourage you to, always talk to your doctor, consult your doctor. If you had an ailment, go see a doctor. So it wasn't something that, oh, we'll just pray over you and you'll get better. No, they believed in science deeply. Um, so that was never an issue.
That's
So
good. That's actually something that I learned just now. I always thought that Jehovah's Witness, they weren't like any doctors at all.
Oh no, they
So
definitely
blood,
believe in doctors. Yeah, definitely.
that's good.
Yeah,
What
I mean,
about,
yeah,
do you
huh?
still devout right now, or are you out
Oh
of that?
no, no, no. I left about 4 years ago. Yeah, I left about 4 years ago. Yeah,
That's a big change. Did that concur at the same time that you came out of the closet,
basically, yeah,
or were
yeah. That's part of
yeah,
it.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so I still have a lot of respect for them because they're very caring people, very loving people. It's just it wasn't for me. Um,
Yeah,
but at the same time, um, a lot of the values that I have, especially even the leftist values that I have, I was actually taught by that growing up, in that organization. So, truth be told, I am grateful. So, yeah.
I mean,
Um,
I'm kind of the same way. Okay, so even though I was an atheist as an adult, my
mhm.
grandpa on one side was a minister. She okay? My grandpa on my Samoan side was a minister, and so like I was born into Christian, Catholic, and all, and then I kind of got off on it when I started like reading more about leftist materials as a kid because my mom gave me Marx. My mom was first, like I said, thing. My mom was the first person to go to college, and she was a political science major. So she gave me like Karl Marx to read when I was a kid. You know,
Oh,
she pointed me to like English writers and all. My dad, my dad grew up around Compton, so like I said, he had friends that were in the Black Panthers party. So I got exposed to that, and then as someone that's like, um, I'm indigenous two ways, and I'm Jewish, where my grandpa was a Holocaust survivor. Like
yeah,
both households growing up on both sides of my family, they were not centered around America. They were centered around our cultures,
wow,
and especially like with my Samoan side, it was very like centered around like how things are in the third world. And for example, my grandpa became an atheist at Holocaust, and because he had an indigenous grandson, he was teaching me as a kid that what Israel did to Palestine
hmm
is very similar to what America did to the Native Americans and Samoans when they took their land. So he didn't look at it like, oh, Israel's the motherland. He looked at it like, no, they're the same kind of white colonizer influence that America has, where they're basically stealing land from people that are already live there.
Yeah.
And me and him are on the same page as this. He's dead now, but and him were on the same page as this. My dad is very pro-Israel. He's not on the same page as this,
Gotcha.
and that's fine. I mean, we get into arguments about it. Sometimes I say some inflammatory things about Israel, and he hangs up. But at the same time, like he does have weird views. Like he would rather see like New York get attacked by terrorists in Jerusalem because he keeps saying like Jerusalem is way too important compared to America.
Okay.
LA he doesn't want to attack because he lives there. That's the only place in America he doesn't want to see attacked is the place that he lives.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Hmm. Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's weird because like there's a little influence of religion on both sides, and I'm just like you. A lot of my leftist views came from like the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Conservatives can't square that circle for some reason, and it's just like, uh, I read the Bible. Did you?
Yeah,
um. So, you
it's
know.
pretty. The meek shall inherit. That means poor people should inherit the earth, not rich people, not Bill Gates, not Bezos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, there's nothing meek about capitalism.
Mm.
Um. So one of the things that also was in the list of things that we can talk about. I mean, we're already basically on it. Is the link between capitalism and living in the hood. Um,
Yeah,
and thinking about it, like, yo, I'm originally from Camden, New Jersey, right? Anybody knows
right.
anything about Camden is it was really bad, especially during the crack epidemic. And so you have a single mom with 3 boys living in Camden, and it's like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna stay there and let your sons be subject to gang violence, or are you gonna move and get them out of there and to a different environment so that they can grow up just a little bit better? Kind of sounds like immigrants from the global south, don't you think?
Very
Is
much so, honestly.
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why I sympathize with immigrants so much. But I digress. So,
I'll digress now because it's very like on point with like why black and brown Americans should always rep for immigrants, especially illegal ones or undocumented ones, because like I pointed out in the last show, 40% of my hood has one parent that's undocumented, and I had three cousins that were undocumented that lived with us that were all Samoan from the global south,
yeah.
and they came over there because the minimum wage at the time was 80 cents an hour over here.
Oof.
So how do you expect like anyone in the global south to like think like they can barely survive off of that? So of course they're gonna want to come. Even we're coming to like LA and working under the table for like $10 an hour doing construction work. That's enough
Mhm.
money where you can save like half of that and send it back to your family, and none of them have to work anymore. They
Mm.
can just live off of that because like over here, $150 a week can feed like a family of six, and
Wow.
like that's one person's Starbucks bill for a week, and that's feeding a family of six over here. Like that's how, and it's not like over here. Um, purchasing power is great. No, it's not. Like everything's double. Like we have the most expensive Big Mac in the world in in a in Samoa, and the workers over here for pushing out the most expensive Big Mac in the world, they get paid $2 an hour. Despite the fact that our McDonald's, which is the only one on the island, makes way more money than the average McDonald's in LA. And the workers here get paid $2 an hour, even though the guy that owns this also owns the one in American Samoa. He's American himself. he makes more profit off of this than the average McDonald's franchise owner, and he's still paying people $2 an hour despite making more profits. Which honestly, I'd like to point out, it's such BS when people say things like, "Oh, profits are tied to worker wages." Because if that were true, the people here would be making at least 15, 20, $25 an hour, $30 an hour. Denmark McDonald's pays $22 an hour, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't make any profit that this Samoan McDonald's is making.
Mm.
So how is it ever like a real thing to say that like profit is correlated to worker wages? Because when they set prices, they don't factor in worker wages at all. They set the price point first,
Mm-hmm.
then they do the wages,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically set the price point and the worker wages whatever they can get away with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
And
they
in a yep,
well and as far as the cost, the actual cost, they try to minimize it as much as possible. So make it as cheap as possible, but also work your workers as much as possible with having fewer workers, but also pay them as little as possible.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
over here, like I thought at first when the high prices of McDonald's was to take advantage of the Australian and New Zealand tourists that were coming here, all the Bolongies, which is Bolongi is a word for white people. Bolong. I
Mhm.
thought it was to take advantage until I started going out a lot, and every Friday you see Samoans that make like minimum wage or like $1 or $2 an hour, and they get drunk, and then
Mhm.
they go to McDonald's. They spend like what's half a day's worth of work, of wage
Mhm.
for them after they get drunk, and it is something that regular people do go to McDonald's and they're getting taken advantage of because just 20 just like 100 kilometers away you can get the same stuff for like $3 or $4 cheaper on air. Like everything, a Happy Meal here is $10.
Oh my god. What?
Like no toy
Yeah. If
on top
if
of it.
if you have to work 5 hours just to afford a Happy Meal,
Mm.
that's sick and twisted.
We don't get Happy Meals for our kids. Like it's too expensive, honestly. They
Yeah.
rip off crazy. But at the same time, like kids love McDonald's.
Mhm.
Um, Phones do love McDonald's. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say like they look at McDonald's differently than like Americans do because we don't have like 20 different franchises and
Mhm.
all. We don't have 20 food joints, so we don't have all these options to like go to like different places and all. So McDonald's is like a consider like a luxury thing that it's like a thing that like you treat your family and it's like you know it's something people look forward to. That's why like when Americans talk about and the left does this a lot, which is a little classist in my opinion. They like to say like, "Oh, McDonald's sucks. Who would ever go to McDonald's?" And I'm like, "Well, you know what? In the third world, they look at it like this is like a privilege and a luxury, and all. And
Mhm.
it's like when
Yeah.
you're like that. You're kind of like demeaning them when people say
Yeah.
McDonald's like
Yeah.
this this nasty place or nasty food. Well, people love that food here, and even I've gotten used. I didn't eat McDonald's that much in America, but I'm eating it here, and I do like it when I go here. I
Mhm.
like the iced coffee. I like breakfast. I always like the breakfast. But
Mhm.
it's food is just food, and it's there's things that Americans eat that aren't that great. Like not everyone can like afford you know vegan toast or avocado. You know,
Yeah.
we all can't go to Whole Foods and stuff. Like I mean, Whole Foods is expensive. Like I
Oh,
lived in West
yeah.
Palm, making a lot.
Yeah. 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 I think part of it is because we're so saturated with things like McDonald's and things like that to us it's just like okay, there's nothing to it. Because when I was younger, it was a treat to get something like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, like
You could,
we would pass one, and I would ask my mom if we can have McDonald's, and she would. And her famous phrase was, "I ain't got no McDonald's money." So, so nowadays I've actually had, even when I was a teenager, I started having friends with their mother started getting them McDonald's like 2, 3 times a week, and they got sick and tired of it
yeah.
because it was cheap and it was something that she can get. So that's what changed here in the United States, because it's pretty much, they're monopolizing. I wanna make sure I say the word correctly, on the fast food model, and they're trying to expand so far that now people have it on a regular basis, and that's how they make their money, is that people come regularly. So
Yeah.
for other people in other countries, it's rare and it's more, kind of seen as a privilege, but here we're so overly saturated with it. It's like nothing to us.
Well, here in Samoa, like McDonald's is one of the most expensive things to on the island. The only thing more expensive than McDonald's is like the resort restaurants. Otherwise, it's one of the most expensive things to go to. So it's not considered like this cheap food. Whereas it's one of the cheapest things you can eat out without going to a grocery store.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, it's like we're paying double for like cheese. We're paying double for lettuce, sometimes triple for lettuce because it's getting imported to our island.
Yeah.
Strawberries, $10 for like those little strawberries and all because that's not made out here. So in a way, like sometimes to go to eat out, it is actually cheaper compared to going to the grocery store. Um, Chicken's really cheap here.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not exactly sure why, but it is pretty cheap here. Um, but yeah, like I really feel like Americans are too American centric on how they look at like poverty, and they don't
Mhm.
understand like even poverty in America is still privilege compared to poverty here or poverty in like a Pacific Island area or in
Yeah.
Africa or in global South in general. Because I mean, look, Africa, Central America, Pacific, all global South, Southeast Asia, global South.
Mhm.
Um, and they don't understand like you can be in the hood and have a 12 Pro Max, whereas here, that's a cost of a 12 Pro Max here is half a year's salary. Cost of a 12 Pro Max in the hood is like a 2 weeks pay for like minimum wage worker and all. And that's something that I don't think like a lot of, especially leftists, I don't think possibly can like what third world poverty is compared to like what poverty in America is.
Yeah.
And
But one thing that we can touch on that basically is, even still, the poverty that's caused throughout the world is because of this nation's imperialistic practices of extracting resources from them and trying to have a control over them. So, um, yes,
yeah, if not this nation, other Europe or any Western country, everyone's like over Samoa was a German colony, and then it was a British part of British Commonwealth via New Zealand.
mhm,
So there's a lot of the rich people here have German names, and um, we even had a Nazi party that was sent over here in the 30s, even though it wasn't a colony anymore under Germany.
mm,
And so that was interesting. Um, the difference here is like we don't have colorism here like in other brown countries in global South.
that's interesting.
Not 90%, like most of the country is brown, and most of the people in government are brown. They're dark skinned,
Hmm.
and more about like family connections and like how they connect to royal Samoan families and the Samoan family that became business owners. They mixed with the colonizers.
Got it.
So the Samoan families that were part of the royal families, they with other royal families, which were all Samoan, and they also led the Mao movement, which is like Tanuvasa, which is my family, Tamasese, which is the last king of Samoa, and Malitoa, which is also a royal Benjamin family. And the last king of Samoa got killed by New Zealand cops during the Mountain Movement, fighting and protesting against them. So there's a different level of respect for the royal families than, and there's zero respect for the German business owner families. Like they just anyone that's a business owner doesn't have the same respect countrywide, especially because a lot of these people, a lot of the regular poor people, they work for these business owners and they get mistreated. So why would they respect? They're getting underpaid, then they're getting overworked. So
Yeah.
they're rightfully looking at them like, oh, these people are abusing us, and they're living these lavish lifestyles while on the backs of our labor.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah. The this situation with uh, with workers, not being paid enough. I'm thinking currently about what's happening with a lot of workers who are on unemployment insurance and they're holding out, and then now you have businesses that are pushing or raising their wages, but it you think about and the type of environment that we grew up in, they paid so little that a lot of us saw that there was really much of a choice. It was either you were going to be, a good citizen and make starvation wages, or you were going to do something that was considered illegal, but at least your rent and was paid, you had a car, and you had maybe some, disposable income, which basically is you're just circumventing the system to achieve the American dream.
Yeah, I mean, like I touched on in the last show, even though my dad was out of prison, when he was out of prison, like he would have like 20 stacks in his closet and all,
Yeah.
and that's what I didn't see my mom's bank account. Like she didn't tell me about like her what she was doing for work. I mean, I just knew she was like a journalist and
Yeah.
all. But I see my dad's stack and I see my cousin's stacks, and I'm like, and I see how they're dressing, and I'm seeing my dad had gold jewelry and stuff,
Hmm.
and he's driving back, and like my cousins are driving like new cars, and like, and it's something I could do in high school. Like I said last time, I made $500 a week my first year selling drugs as a 15-year-old, and then I
Hmm.
made by the time I was 18, I was making 1,000, and then by between 22 and 30, I was making 5 to 10,000, and that 5 to 10,000 was dependent on how much I wanted to work.
Wow.
If I wanted to grind, I could make 10 grand easily. If I wanted to just chill and kick back, I can make 5 grand easily, and then also go take a trip to Europe or to South America, or go to Vegas, go to New York, or go to Miami and stuff.
Hmm.
And I was pushing dope in different places because I I was making a lot of my money when I got expelled from Van Nuys in Cali and I moved over to Florida.
Yeah.
I found Florida, they buy kilos of heroin for like 24K, and my plug in my block, I can get a kilo for 10K.
Wow.
So if I bring that over to Florida, I can undercut them by like 2 grand and like sell a couple kilos and make like 24K like really quickly, and in just one deal. And I don't have to deal with like addicts. I don't have to deal with like dealers, I could just deal with like other plugs, and it was pretty chill for the most part. Um, so when you make that much money, the problem is like you have your friends are working, your girlfriends are working, or going to school, and your family's working or going to school, and like you have all this free time and all this money, and like you start going out clubbing, you start gambling. Like I got addicted to gambling,
Mm-hmm.
and that also propelled me into fraud to
Mm-hmm.
help cover gambling debt stuff. There's bookies that hate me right now because I was like, they're like, fuck, f you, pay me, and I'm like, come and get it. Like I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
you can come find me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm on the East Coast. You gonna look for me from
Mm-hmm.
Cali? No, you ain't coming to my block because my people will take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of bookies I just stiffed honestly, and there
Yeah.
really wasn't anything to do about it.
Yeah.
That's one bit of being in a gang, especially in a gang that I was in, because we're
Mm-hmm.
Mexican mafia connected. Is I can stiff with these bookies and they can't really do anything because if they touch me, like they're gonna get touched back.
Yeah.
And
There's a.
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to get to a question in the comments, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
This kind of goes back to what we're talking about earlier. It's a question from QKR Socialists. So Samoan workers seem more aware of their American workers. Is That's his question.
Mm, Samoan workers seem more aware of their American workers. Like, what do you mean?
More aware of their situation, basically, of how they're being overworked, underpaid, things like that. I think that's what uh, he's referring to, or
Some,
they're referring to. I'm sorry.
I mean, look, no one really thinks about America over here. It's not like it's not like everyone in Samoa is like cares about a country that has nothing to do with them, like 5,000 miles away. Honest, like
Hmm.
they think about New Zealand and Australia. That's where they're trying to get. Um, there is an understanding. There's more New Zealanders and Australian expats over here than American expats. Like the American expats tend to be people like me that have like criminal records. A lot of them are deportees that spent time in prison and then deported as soon as they got out. A lot of ex Crips, ex Bloods. I have a homeboy that got shot 6 times in the chest. He grew up in Compton. He was a Crip. Parents sent him over here after he got out the hospital, and they told him like, yeah, we're gonna send you over to Samoa. You need to chill the fuck out. And then he met a girl, got married, and had kids, and like he stayed. And there's a lot of situations like that, but for the most part, Americans don't come here. It's mostly New Zealanders and Australians. It's not easy to get into this. It's not easy for like first world people to like handle this job market
Hmm.
because you're not paid anywhere near minimum wage that you get in America. So I'm lucky I got American wage. Um, I have a business
Hmm.
here, and um, where I make American. I have a business in Pongo where I make American money, and
Hmm.
I own part business in LA where I make American money. So like I'm able to basically live here like quote unquote a king. Like to them, I'm considered rich. If I was in like middle class
Hmm.
and all, and we're we're pretty comfortable here. That doesn't mean that we're not like one crisis away from like okay now problems
Yeah.
and all. For the most part, we're comfortable compared to
Hmm.
like most people here.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
Thank you.
rent, what?
No, I was saying thank you for that, but go ahead.
My rent here is like $500 a month for pretty big apartment that is with free electricity in town.
Shit. I wish.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much.
Wow.
As soon as I stepped off the plane here, like I was saving like a couple grand a month just living out
Wow.
here.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and my mom's in Pongo, which is American Samoa. So like
Mhm.
we don't call American Samoa. Samoa is Samoa the country. That's one thing
Mhm.
I would love to clarify, especially the leftists, because American Samoa is America to Samoans. Samoa is Samoa the country, the one that got independent colonists. American Samoa is still a colony. No one thinks of it. They think of everyone from there as American.
Mhm.
But 100 kilometers away, and my mom lives in Pongo. So like I can have stuff, and there's a lot of major websites that ship to Pongo. So I can pretty much have any stuff I want, any stuff we need for the family, shipped over there, and then she'll put it on the ferry, and we can get all the stuff that's double the price in all the stores here for a regular price. Also, the only thing that we really spend into the economy is for like food and then Samoan related stuff,
Mhm.
which and rent and all, which allows for like ability to save a lot of money compared
Mm.
to like
Wow.
that's why as an ex addict, I don't want to be in LA. I don't want to be around temptation. I don't want to be around. I don't need that. Like I spent most of my 20s in clubs and nightclubs and bars and like that's over. I mean, that's dead to me. Like I don't even have any feeling for like going to a bar or club or going to parties and stuff.
Mhm.
Like I'm an ex addict, so like the only thing I do is I smoke marijuana and that's it. I barely even drink.
Yeah. Yeah. David Jones, he responded. He said, "At JB, I work as a traveling medical tech. Speaking of overworked and underpaid, I always show my paycheck to permanents to explicitly show how overworked and underpaid they are." That's true. That's actually a good thing because you're planting a seed in them to demand better for themselves. I mean, I think that's one of the good things. I mean, what's your thought about that?
Well, here I found out that Australian doctors get paid like $5 an hour at the Samoan hospital here.
What?
Yeah. Um, it was a very awkward conversation with an Australian doctor where I was like asking her at the ice cream shop. I'm like, you must have the AC on all the time. And she's like, I can't afford the AC. I'm like, really? You're a doctor though. Why can't you afford it? I'm like, I only get paid like $5 an hour. And like that, the nurses get paid a little bit more, get paid the same as them. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. But they don't come here to money. They come here because they want to help out in a third world country, and also
Yeah.
it gives them. So like when they go back to Australia or New Zealand, who is going to be more hireable? A doctor that's straight out of residency, or a doctor that can say like I've been a doctor for 5 years at a real hospital in Samoa. And so it gives them like a lot of benefits. Also, and to be honest, the doctors do genuinely want to help countries like this. That's why Doctors Without Borders exists. They
Yeah.
genuinely want, and it's experience for them. They get experience in other culture. Like it's a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
For the most part, I've seen from the doctors, medical people that come out here, they are genuinely good people that really want to just help
Yeah.
places that
It's
like.
still I still think that they're being shortchanged. I think they should be earning more because of the work that they do, but you know, it's the system, that I think that needs to change. Uh Thanks to David Jones for that question. Um Person named Microsoft Word technical support asked a question. What are the Australian expats like? I hear they aren't liked in a lot of places.
I mean, I rarely see any like white people around here, to be honest. I see mostly brown people most of the time. I could go like a week without seeing a white person. Like I'm the whitest person I see when I'm in the mirror and stuff. And but if you're talking about like Australian expats that are Samoan, they're
Mhm.
genuinely chill. I mean, come with a different perspective because they're a little bit less religious
Mhm.
than Samoa is a very Christian country.
Yeah.
Um, the ones that are from Samoans that are from Western countries, they're obviously more secular.
Mhm.
Um, they definitely look at the minimum wage and they get shocked. I mean, I was shocked when I came here and saw it was $1.25. Obviously, I knew it was going to be cheaper, but $1.25, I'm like, that damn.
Mm.
Like, how do you live off of that? And the the white ones are a little racist, honestly. If I'm going to be real,
Mm.
and so like but that's like everywhere. Like a lot of white people are racist, to be honest. If I'm
Mm.
being real,
Yeah.
Fred Hampton, like that too, like controversial to say, but um, for the most part, the problem that a lot of that I see with the these is they have a little bit of a like snobbishness about them, where they look down on Samoans here in a way that like and expats don't like because
Mhm.
we're used to like embracing like other cultures because we're around so many. The ones here like they want to like brag about their money to like people that don't have as much as them, or they want to like big time on like people that are living like under pretty bad conditions, and their answer for everything is like, oh, well, why can't they just live off their plantations and grow food or go fishing if they can't have a job that makes them a lot of money? It's like, well, you've never done that before. So why are you suggesting that other people should do something that you would never do in your life? When those expats come here, they come here with like tons of money
Mhm.
that they made overseas, and they've never had to like farm their own crops. They've never had to go fishing from like 7 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
So it's easy for them to tell people to do something that they would never do themselves. Like, uh, and so there is like a little smugness that I don't like about the New Zealanders and Australian overseas people, and the American Samoan people.
Mhm.
They there's a little bit. Like I wrote an article for the Samoa Observer about giving more bailout money to actual people instead of just bailing out the hotels and all the corporations and that are foreign invested. Like Marriott got bailed out. Like why is Marriott getting bailed out by the Samoan Bank? That's $1 billion American company. Like why are they getting bailed out by the Samoan Bank? That doesn't make any sense. That's
Yeah.
Samoan taxpayers into an American company, and they're just getting helped. Why are these big Chinese banks getting these big Chinese companies getting bailed out by the Samoan bank? They have their own way to get out there at home.
Yeah.
And same with New Zealand companies and Australian companies. And I was like, all this money they're getting, which was like over close to like about $60 million in American money, like in aid, that was for COVID relief. That wasn't for building bridges or infrastructure. That was to help them manage the economy under COVID. And they decided that the best way to do that was to bail out the hotels because the border was closed. And the hotels took that money and still laid off most of the workers.
Just like here in the
And
United States.
just like there in the United States. And what was the point of that? Because I mean, like, you're trying to give money to the hotels so it'll trickle down to workers. Why don't you just give it straight to the workers? Why do hotels need anything? You know,
Mhm.
like if the whole point of this stimulus package is to give it to the workers, give it to the workers.
Yeah.
So I wrote that, and it got printed in the Samoa Observer, it got printed in Samoa Global News, and then I also passed it to the American Samoan News. And when I talked to some reporters there, and hopefully one reporter like was saying some pretty offensive things about Samoans, like they're dumb and uneducated. It's like, no, not really. I mean, a lot of Samoans go to like that been to Oxford, they've been to school in America, they've been to school in like the best schools in New Zealand and Australia. Some of the best
Mhm.
climate schools are in New Zealand because
Mhm.
they're in the front lines of climate change. Why wouldn't they be better than America
Yeah.
on those terms? And but American arrogance is like something that pervades every race.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even brown and black people are like they're looking down on their own people in other countries just because of their American. It's like it's just birth. Like you're 100 kilometers away from being born into poverty. You just happen to be born in an American colony instead of like born in an independent Samoa.
Mhm.
Like there's no
Yeah. Okay, you're touching on something that I'm gonna be honest. Especially here in Central Florida.
Mhm.
Here in Central Florida, we have a very large Haitian population.
Right.
Unfortunately, American Black people, a lot of them in this area, have had a horrible prejudice against Haitian Americans. And so there was even a point where to call an American Black a Haitian was considered a slur. That's how bad it was.
Not that's wild to me, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's horrible and it's wrong. And the thing is Haitian people were always looked down on. You can be a black dude in the hood and poor, and they would look down on people who were Haitian. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, as you know, like I ended up moving over to Side St. Pete, so like
Mhm.
that's a black and that was the first time I'm around like the Haitian culture
Mhm.
and the Dominican culture and Puerto Rican culture. There's no Puerto Ricans in LA like there is over there. Like we got
Oh, there's a
our
lot of Puerto
central,
Ricans here too, yeah.
yeah, our global south is like Mexican, Ecuadorian, Guatemalan, El Salvadorian, Honduran, possibly Brazilian. It's not like we don't get that many Puerto Ricans or Dominicans in Cali.
Mhm.
So that's something that's fresh to me, especially the Cuban aspect. That was super fresh to me when I got to Florida. And
Mhm.
not only was I exposed to like the whole voodoo, obviously, but where I had a lot of homeboys that were telling me like voodoo's real, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't think it's real. Like, why do you guys think this exists so much? But it is. People have their superstitions. It's their culture. I'm not.
Mhm.
But the main things that people used to say is like, oh, if you get in an accident with a Haitian person, they're gonna like run some sort of scam on you and all. And that was like a common thing. Like even black people in Florida were like, don't get in car accidents with Haitian people because they're gonna run a scam on you. And like, well,
Yeah.
it ain't like that's specific to Haitian people. That's like specific to anyone that is poor. Like, of course they're gonna anyone that needs money is gonna run scams. Like I ran scams. Like I scammed a bunch of people when I was
Mhm.
coming up. In addition to selling drugs and like even when I
Mhm.
had money, I ran scams. Like because it's easy money. Like it and what about white collar guys that graduated from Harvard and ran? Bernie Madoff was a billionaire.
Mhm.
He need that
Yeah.
money. He ran it.
Yeah.
So like the way we talk about Nigerians, that's crazy too. The way we talk about Chinese who run scams, that's crazy too. It's like we make it sound like there's something specific to scamming that only happens in like Africa and Asia and not something that's like just part of like everyday life around the world and it crosses class, crosses race. We just
Mhm.
make it seem like because the news reports it as like Nigerian scams
Yeah.
because that's the easy they get.
Yeah.
But they don't report that the stock market is a scam. I mean, buying Tesla is a scam.
Hmm.
Like, like how does the stock market have any value? They're just betting on air. Like they're betting on
Basically,
nothing.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. I
Like
mean, and it's basically, the New York Stock Exchange is just a giant casino. That's all it is.
yeah, it is. Like I had a home. I have a homeboy he has an MBA and he worked for Merrill Lynch. Now he works for some other joint. And he tried to
Hmm.
get me to invest my money into the stocks and gold and silver. And I'm like, well, you make a couple hundred grand a year. Why aren't you investing your money in it? Like if it's so great, like if this is such a lucrative way to do it, why you don't even got a 10 cents into gold or silver, and you're trying to talk me into putting my money into it.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
like, if you're so making money off of this, why aren't you rich off of this? Why are you having to make commission off of this? So that's why I would tell. And I told one of my homeboys that was talking to him, I'm like, look, man, be smart. Like this guy doesn't even like. I know he's our friend, but this guy doesn't even put his own money into it. So like, if it's so great, why doesn't he put his own money into it? Like that's just
Yeah.
common sense.
Yeah.
And
And I
that's
mean,
something.
yeah. I mean,
That's
if he was putting in, if it was something that he can make money off of on his own, he would probably be rarely telling it to a lot of people because he wouldn't want too many people to know anyway.
exactly. Because it's like in the Wolf of Wall Street where where that guy's telling Leonardo DiCaprio like, our main goal is to have people break even so we can make transactions and we can make commission. And like with the phone company like with my side phone business, like I
Hmm.
put most of my money in that business, making lots of money, and you know I'm not sitting there telling people you should go buy phones and get into my business. Like I don't want you to be getting. I don't want competition. I don't want other people to be getting into my business and stuff. But like
Hmm.
that's how you have a successful business. That's how you react to like real profits and all. Like when I told him when he's trying to get me to get gold and silver, and like I'm like, well, I can make a lot more money off of 5 grand or 10 grand on phones than I could like in a month than I could off of gold and silver in like 2 or 3 years. So how is that helpful to me? Like go talk to some other like sucker and get him the money. And and at one point when he lost his job, I hate to put him on blast, but when he lost his job, he's asking me for help about how he can invest and make money and all. And I'm like, well, number one, it's a different market, and number two, you got to be able to grind, and you got to be able to adjust and adapt, and you got to be able to be okay with failure and be okay with risk. And like, obviously, you aren't because you never risked your own money on anything, and you were making plenty of money. And to be honest, he tuned out within like 5 minutes of me explaining like how this would go. And I'm like, all right, well, you're basically just a salesman. So go be a salesman. That's your thing.
Yeah.
I sold drugs. Like business is like natural to me. Like
Hmm.
selling drugs and selling the same thing to me. It's just you're just selling a product you're buying a product at this price and you're selling it at this price.
Yeah.
And as the market changes, like when you got competition, if they come down a little bit lower than you, then you go down lower than them.
Hmm.
And how it is, like it's pretty simple. Like it's just adding and subtracting. It's just a matter of like, can you make decisions? And like, not everyone is built for like making like those type of decisions. Not
Yeah.
everyone's built for failure.
Yeah.
I've been up, or so like failure. I've seen failure a million times. I grew up poor. I've been at zero before. Like failure ain't a thing to me.
Hmm. Yeah. And while we're on discussion of scams, a lot of people in the comments are saying things like the prison system is a scam, the health, insurance industry is a scam. So we're surrounded by scams all
Yeah.
day, every day. I mean, capitalism itself is a scam because it promises that everybody can succeed while only making sure that a small number of people do. So,
Number
um,
one, no, I would never work for Pfizer. Fuck Pfizer.
I'm,
Honestly,
well, you said never what?
I would never work for Pfizer. Fuck Pfizer, honestly. I gotta say it low because the baby's here, but F
Ah.
Pfizer. Um, I don't really want to get paid legally to sell drugs. Like, I like doing what I'm doing now,
Mhm.
and we've touched on what my regular work is, which I'll be getting back to as soon as COVID's over.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be balancing both, but my work here is pretty easy, so like I can balance both.
Yeah.
But as far as like um dealing with like all these scams, is like stock market is a scam, commodities is a scam. I mean, the way that the way that I mean, any place that screws over labor, they're scamming their workers. Because I mean, we're like, when is enough profit like too much? You know,
Mhm.
like you shouldn't. Like I read Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, which is supposed to be like the capitalist like playbook.
Mhm.
And if capitalists read his book right now and they didn't know it was written by Adam Smith, they would think he was a communist because the way he talked about it is that as soon as CEOs had enough money to take care of themselves, they should only be focused on workers making as much money as possible.
Wow.
He did not.
Okay.
Now he was naive and he didn't anticipate monopolies. He didn't anticipate the government influencing, commerce. He didn't anticipate politicians getting bribed by
Mhm.
corporations. He didn't anticipate that CEOs would have an endless chase for money. That they would have a Bezos or Elon Musk who just want as much money as possible that they're never going to spend. Like
Yeah.
because it's insane, honestly, to have chase money that you're never going to spend. It's pointless. Like that.
Mhm.
Like what's the point of your? So what? You have like $100 billion, but you're never going to. That 99 billion of that is never going to be used. So
Mhm.
like you really just have air in the form of a number in your bank.
Yeah.
And to them it's valuable, but to me it's like you can do so much with it. Like 99 billion dollars would stretch so far in Samoa. Like you literally change people's lives, and like they
Mhm.
don't because they don't. I mean, I think Bezos talked about how he wanted to be this ruthless like uh, business owner, and he is. And, like he just wants to like mm, I don't know. Capitalism sucks. Like it's the one of the worst inventions in the world. Honestly, I think it's ruining climate change. It's ruining the third world. It's ruining America. Um, Materialism, the way that like America chases like
Mhm.
phones and
Yeah.
Starbucks and like the latest computers and tablets.
Yeah.
Even I'm wearing like I'm even caught up in the materialism of stuff. Like I this even like my clothes don't matter yet it makes me feel good, so I buy it.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're not exploiting people to get it.
No.
So and this whole mindset of capitalism, uh, it's crazy because they even push for people to, how do I word it? They push for people to strive for things uh, are that are out of whack when it comes to priorities. So, for instance, um, you live paycheck to paycheck, but at the same time, they want you to get you know the the 22-inch rims, and they push that on you like get these 22-inch rims, and it's like, but yo, why are you getting those rims or the system when you're living paycheck to paycheck? But the thing is that these companies, they push that because they want to squeeze more money out of you, and they don't want you to put more of your priorities of making sure that you have uh, a decent roof over your head and decent food on your table, they say never mind that. It's all about the flash. It's all about the glitz and the glamour, and then everything else, never mind. And people in the hood literally live in a food desert. They don't have a decent grocery store to go to, and so they have to eat bullshit. And yet they continue to keep pushing these stupid, idiotic things. It's not necessarily idiotic, but they push things that are, you know, out of whack when it comes to priorities. You know, um,
Yeah,
and
and
being poor is very expensive, just like one of the commenters said. So
well, yeah, because you're gonna be suffering interest that a lot of rich people don't have to deal with. Just on top of that,
yeah.
one thing that me and Jackie from FHL on is like the difference in how poor people like look at money compared to like middle class and rich people. Like I was telling her, like if I had like, there's no difference to me between $0 and $100 because of how
Mm-hmm.
I grew up. So
Mm-hmm.
like if I only had $100, I could easily just drop that and
Mm-hmm.
be fine because I'm at being having $0. So it ain't a big deal for me to have $0. Whereas like her, if she had like $100, she probably saved like at least $20 to $50 for that because middle class people and upper middle class people, that's how they think. They think about saving because they can actually save. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone that can't save that $100. Like even if I didn't buy like a pair of Jordans with that money is going to be used up pretty quickly on food or something else.
Yeah.
And once you get used to like having nothing, it's easy to like when you get money to just spend it. Cause like
Oh,
one thing,
yeah.
yeah. Cause like one thing, like one of my homeboys taught was telling me like this very interesting point about why poor people spend money so fast compared and much as like middle class people or rich people is because like a poor person goes their whole year looking at something and wanting it, like a PS5 or like Air Force Ones or like Jordans,
Mm-hmm.
and they buy it every week. Every week they can't afford it. So when they finally get dropped in with money, they've been thinking about it for so long, they go and
Mm-hmm.
just blow that money, buy it. Whereas someone with middle class, they can afford all these things at any moment in their life. So it's not as important to them. They know they can get it at any time so that they don't make these impulse buys that like poor people make.
Mm-hmm.
Because poor people make impulse buys because they're constantly like looking at things they can't afford and wanting them. And
Yeah.
then it builds up all this
Oh.
like materialism, it builds up into them where like they want that stuff and they like I wanted this. I like so like
Mm-hmm.
I went and got it.
Yeah. Yeah. But yo, we're okay. So we're touching on something that a lot of people, regardless of class, should be able to identify. How many people, and those of you in the comments, I want y'all to answer this too. How many of y'all got super happy when you realized you were going to get your income tax? And then as soon as that tax hit your bank account or that check came in the mail, y'all went to cash it. The first thing y'all did is y'all went out to eat because y'all know y'all never can do it, right? You guys, some of y'all went to Walmart because y'all knew they had some sales at Walmart that y'all needed to get because a lot of y'all were so poor y'all couldn't even afford anything at Black Friday. So y'all went during tax season. Uh yo,
Yeah.
and then a lot of you who got your tax returns as soon as that money hit, then you're like, "Oh snap, it's popping. I need to put some money on my electric. I got to put some money on, on other things." And then you also had some money left over. Oh yeah, I need a new phone. I need this, I need that. And then by the time the month is done, your income tax is gone. You don't have it
Yes.
no more. So then next thing you know, you're like, damn, I spent all my income tax money. But at the same time, you get some people who are well to do, affluent, that would go, You should have took that inflow tax money and you should have just saved it and then let it, grow in interest. And it's like, but I needed my intercooler fix, not intercooler. I needed my water cooler fix, or I needed new brake pads, or I needed new tires. That's like $800 I had to spend on my car, and that's how much I got in income tax. You know what I mean? So you know, uh, we those of us who are poorer, when as soon as we get money, we have to use it on immediate things, and a lot of people just don't understand that because we can't focus on anything down the line because our issues are hitting us right now, you know?
Exactly. Like,
And
no, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, you have issues like right now. I mean, you got people that are borrowing money on the basis of their income tax is coming. So, like, as soon as they get that money, they gotta give it to people that they borrowed money from. Like,
Mhm,
that's the type of a lot of people like that are poor are living is that they're borrowing. They're like, hey, I got this tax refund coming, or I got the stimulus check coming. Can I borrow money so I can pay a bill off? And then
mhm,
as soon as they get the stimulus check, they don't get to enjoy it the same way that a middle class person does or upper middle class person does. They got to give that back to the person they borrowed it from, you
mhm,
know? And it's not really a bonus at that point. It's just like they're living paycheck to paycheck, but and it's like, you know, what they're not stimulating anything. They're just paying off a bill. And that's not what a stimulus check is for. A stimulus check is supposed to stimulate the economy to where it gives you enough money to buy stuff at Walmart, buy stuff
mhm,
at and keep jobs afloat, not just pay off your bills. Like they should be giving enough money to pay off your bills and then give you enough money to also be able to go to Foot Locker and buy the latest Jordans and go to buy a latest iPhone because that's how you stimulate the economy.
mhm.
Like, liberals don't seem to, as capitalist as they are, they don't seem to get that.
No.
As capitalist as conservatives are, they don't seem to get that. You need to like give people money to pay off their bills first, and then give them extra money to pay to buy stuff at stores. No, they're like give them money without factoring in their bills, and then just hope that they choose meaningless stuff first
Mhm.
and not their bills first. Well, anyone that's actually like in real pressure, under real pressure, they're not gonna pick going to buy Jordans over feeding their kids. They're not gonna pick going to buy an iPhone over turning on the electricity and stuff. And
Yeah,
that's something that like all capitalists don't seem to understand, and they should, but
yeah,
they don't. And it
yeah,
would benefit them too, because like if they give more money, that's more money that goes back into these corporations.
yeah.
And if more jobs in play, that's more money that's going to be pushing back into the economy.
Mhm,
Otherwise, they're at some of these businesses are going to go bankrupt if they don't give monthly stimulus checks. And then it's like once it's over, yeah, your company, no matter how big it is going to get poached by by a Chinese company or a Brazilian company or a European company, and you're just going to get eaten up. And like your small business and your medium sized business is going to be gone, and all
yeah,
because you're too greedy to like understand how the economy really works. And
mhm,
like I'm a socialist. Why do I know more about capitalism than these capitalists do? I don't even care about capitalism. I don't even think capitalism is that great. But I run a business, so I understand. I run a business that operates in two different countries, so I understand how like the exchange rate works. I understand how the market works,
yeah,
and these people don't seem to understand shit. Like, and I didn't step a day on college. I didn't get an MBA. I didn't
mm,
spend a day in college. I got expelled from school for ditching too much,
mhm,
and it's just me. This is common sense that I learned easily selling drugs. Like, and these people that get spend all this money on student loans and like MBAs and like spend all this time in classroom learning from professors that if they're so smart, why aren't they running businesses? And they don't
Yeah.
like all these people, like I have homies that like did go to college and they're coming to me for like business advice and how to start businesses. And I tell them it's like honestly, it's a natural talent. Like you have to be built for it from the get go. You
Yeah.
have because like yeah, like gambling helped me a lot. Being a gambling addict helped me a lot with dealing with loss and dealing with like risk taking
Yeah.
because I've been at 10 grand and went down to zero in one night. So like that ain't a big deal to me. Like
Wow.
when I first started my own business and stuff, like people were telling everyone in my family is telling me start slow, start slow, start slow. Just put like 2 grand in and then see how it goes. I put like 5 grand in, and then like 2 days later, after I put 5 grand in, I'm like, nah, fuck it, I'm gonna put another 5 grand in, and it turned out well. And I ignored everyone that was like telling me like, oh, start slow, and I'm like, why am I listening to all these people that never had ran a business? Like you've never even ran a business, so what kind of like what's the start slow thing like? What are you basing it on?
Yeah.
You're just basing it on like fear basically, and like you can't operate on fear in business. And this is why I think like drug dealers make better business people than actual business people
Yeah.
because we're constantly under the threat of fear of getting arrested, of having to lose product when we get arrested, of getting robbed possibly, and we're like, and then we also have like some bad habits that like this drip does not come free. Like we pick up bad habits. These chains do not come free. When you're making easy money, you pick up such bad habits. You go to the mall and drop like 2 or 3 grand, like it's nothing. You go to Vegas and you drop like 10 or 20 grand, like it's nothing because it doesn't feel like you're earning the money because it doesn't take that much work to earn the money. So it starts to become like a scoreboard on like a video game to you.
Mhm.
And until you get arrested and then you go to jail or prison and you're like, damn, I wish I had that extra 50 or 100 grand right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, oh, and then like, you're like, especially when I got out of jail for the first time, or not the first time, but like the last time. And at that point, like I'd been in case in Florida, and I'm from Florida,
Mhm.
so it, I moved to school. So like I had roots in Florida, but I'm really from Cali, so they bonded wouldn't let me bond out. Even
Mhm.
though I came in with money to pay for my bond, they were like, "Nah, you're flight risk. We're worried that you're just gonna run to Cali and never come back." And I'm like, "Why am I gonna pay you 4 grand and not come back? I don't want to just lose that 4 grand. I want to take care of this case too." And
Mhm.
honestly, like this case, they have a case on me. I'm gonna beat it. But they
Yeah.
don't. They hear that all the time. They don't think about it. So I got stuck in Florida for like 6.5 months fighting this case, and it turned out to be the best thing that could happen in my life because I was getting tired of this cycle of gambling addiction, drug addiction, because
Yeah.
even though I'm making like a lot of money, like I'm also spending a lot of money, and like I'm living in like hotels, like expensive hotels, probably spending like at least 2 or 3 grand a month on hotels, and I'm gambling a lot. I'm doing lots of drugs, whether I'm going out to clubs and buying bottle service. And thank you, David. I will
Mhm.
shift it a couple to the left. I appreciate that. But yeah, going to like I'm going to all the clothing stores and buying like expensive stuff, buying jewelry.
Mhm.
I got like a lot of gold Rolexes back in the crib in LA and stuff that I didn't want to bring here because you don't want to flaunt stuff in this type of place. And
Yeah, I
also I
got
get
you.
robbed, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah. One of the things
My
I
living
okay.
style was like crazy. Like it was insane. It was like I wasn't saving money like I should have been because
Mhm.
I wasn't. I always like a couple days away from 10 grand. So like money didn't seem to like be that important of a thing to me. And mo- so I spent that 6 months, and it ended up being a great thing because like I was under so much pressure. Like when I would lose like 10 or 20 grand at the casino to like go and make it back, and I had to
Mhm.
take bigger risks in fraud or drug sales to make it back,
Mhm.
and put myself at a bigger risk of going to prison, and I did, and that 6 months where I got to like just sit there and think about like, okay, I'm 30 now,
Mhm.
you know, where's my life going to be? Because like
That's true.
what I'm seeing is like what my dad told me growing up.
Mhm.
This life is going to go, and then you're either dead or in prison. And
Yeah.
what I saw is like I saw kids that were like 19, 18, 20, 21 losing cases and getting like 10, 15, 20 years for some of the similar charges that they're trying to hit me up for. And as I'm seeing this happen, it's depressing as hell. I'm sad for them because it's like it's young lives wasted, to be honest. Like these young kids, these young black kids, these young brown kids, the young white kids too, like looking at them and like they're never gonna have like a proper life. They're never gonna know what it's like to have like a driver's license. They're until like they're in their 30s. They're never gonna know what it's like to have like a real relationship until their 30s. They might not see. Some of them have kids, and that's and they're never gonna have a proper relationship with that kid because even if they come out, that kid's gonna still think of it like they got abandoned.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
matter how they're gonna think their dad abandoned them.
Mhm.
And I I'm looking at these kids and I'm like, all I kept thinking about is like, if I beat this case, I'm done. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna take my 30 grand that I have in the bank, and I'm like, I'm gonna try and do something with it. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm clean right now. Um, I did I did relapse a little bit in jail.
Mhm.
Someone suitcase some Roxy's.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if anyone knows what suitcasing means, but when you bring it in your anal cavity, bring
Mhm.
drugs in your anal cavity, and someone took Roxy's, which is like cotton, and
Mhm.
me and my homeboy, we spent like $300 each of our commissary to buy all of it just to get
Wow.
high for like 2 days in ourselves. Like I didn't eat for 2 days. I just was in my cell just snorting these Roxy's for 2 days straight, not coming out for any of the meals. Guards were like checking up on me or like, are you cool? I'm like, I'm just sick. Don't worry about it. Leave me alone. And
Mhm.
then after that, I'm like, okay, there's no more left. I'm like, what was the point of this? Because like, yeah. And that was the last time I did on drugs until I got out and I went to a party.
Mhm.
I was like, they're celebrating me getting out,
Mhm.
and I got a little anxiety because everyone's like asking me. I'm finding out that like people are gossiping about my mugshots online, and they're gossiping.
Oh.
Yeah, behind my back, it's like you know, just be straight with me. If you want to ask me something, if you saw something, just like call me up and let that be the first thing out of your mouth in the conversation. Don't like talk about like little things and then like halfway through the convo it's like just a heads up, like I saw this and this. Like, be a man about it. Like you're gonna do that because all you're doing is just like this is something that benefits you gossiping about my situation, and something that I suffered that you didn't suffer through.
Mhm.
I suffered through this, and
Yeah.
you guys are like making like it's a joke, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a joke to me not being around my loved ones, and it wasn't a joke to my family,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
it
Uh.
wasn't a joke to my and my homies that have been locked up. Like, they understood. That's how I reconnected with a lot of guys that I grew up with that were also criminals. is when I got locked up, they were the ones that held me down. They were the ones that were like showed kindness and warmth to me,
Yeah.
even though I kind of on them when I moved to West Hollywood and I was going back and forth to Florida. I was a little selfish and thinking about myself and like trying to to stay away from that lifestyle. Like those were the
Mhm.
guys that were there for me, and the people that I thought were like normal people. Those are the ones that were like kind of like secretly got locked
Mhm.
up. Like
Yeah.
jealous. As far as I'm concerned, they were jealous about how I was making my money and like they were like, "Oh, he deserved it." And these are like liberals. These are like people that are like probably Black Lives Matter people like right now, like
Mm.
ACAP people,
Yeah.
and they weren't fuck the police when I got locked up. They were like fuck me when I got locked up.
Wow. It's crazy.
So
Uh, that actually kind of goes into a little bit of something else you want to talk about. Uh, by the way, everybody in the comments, thank you so much for your comments. Um, and I'm gonna get to some more of them in a minute. But I wanted to, go into this because you already are alluding to this aspect, and you wanted to talk about public defenders, right?
I
Um,
do.
and for anybody who's watching who's not in the United States, according to our laws, if you are arrested and in need of attorney, but you do not have enough money, then the law stipulates that an attorney will be provided for you. And these attorneys are typically called public defenders. And they're employed by the state to defend you as a defense in the court of law in the United States.
Right. And okay, so public defenders they get a little bit too much by people that don't understand like their place in the judicial system. Like there are definitely some good public defenders, but what people have to understand is like public defenders do not get paid until your case is finished. So they have motivation to push you to take plea deals because the faster a plea deal means then and there. You take it to trial, that means they gotta wait months before they get paid.
Hmm.
And they don't get paid that get paid maybe like $500 to $1,000 a case. So like
Hmm.
they have monetary reasons to push people that have shaky cases into taking a plea. Even if look, and I'm not trying to say like innocent people are going to jail or prison because like if I'm being real, most people are guilty that are locked up. Whether or not those laws should exist is another discussion. Like I
Yeah.
don't think those laws should exist, and I don't think you should get that much for those some of these laws.
Yeah.
But between homies and stuff in lock up, no one's saying that they're innocent. The only people that say they're innocent are like child molesters, murderers,
Hmm.
and wife beaters. People that murderers have to say they're innocent because anyone they say they're guilty to someone to the wrong person, that person's gonna snitch on them and try and get out of their case, run them under the bus.
Hmm.
Pedophiles, of course, they say they're innocent, even though no one believes them. No one
Yeah.
believes them. They tell them check out the protective custody, and
Hmm.
then rapists, no one believes them. You gotta check the protective custody. The domestic violence people, like they try to like say like they try to blame it on the women all the time, and like everyone kind of looks down on them. Like they just look at them like, yo,
Hmm.
we're here because we're at least you're here just because you got angry, and but like the public defenders, for the most part, they get chummy. They're chummy with the prosecutors. They're chummy with some of these judges. Um, I don't care. Like I see someone read saying handle 10,000 cases per hour, and they're all complex cases. No, they're not all complex cases, because I didn't go to law school, and I was able to give a lot of like information to paid lawyers about how search and seizure works, and how illegal search and seizures are, and I was working in with my lawyers on building on protecting myself because no one's gonna have more reason to like understand the law than someone that's freedom's at stake.
Yeah.
I have more motivation to learn about the law than my paid lawyer. Lose, they still have my money. If I
Mhm.
lose, I go to prison. I lose my freedom. They don't lose shit if I lose. They get their money
Mhm.
and they pay it either way, which I always thought was unfair because I'm like, if you lose the case, I shouldn't have to pay you. Like, why should
Mhm.
I have to pay you if that you lose the case? That should give you some motivation to go win it. But public defenders and all, like, there are some good public defenders, and there are two types of public defenders, by the way. There's a
Okay.
division of public defenders that handle like regular felony cases and misdemeanor cases,
Mhm.
and then there's a special division of public defenders that handle big cases like murder cases and kidnapping and like cases that where you're going to get hit with like 15, 20 years. Now those public defenders are very good and they are very on point, and they win a lot of cases, and they tend to take cases to trial mostly because their clients do not want to see like 10, 20 years, so they have to. The lower end public defenders, it's hit or miss. Some of them are just basically trying to like just talk you into like taking plea deals because it's easier for them.
Yeah.
Whether I see stuff like, I know a lot about the law because I spent a lot. The first time I ever got arrested, like I spent like another few $100, spent it and a few hours in consultation with the lawyer, where I was just sitting there like hammering him with questions on like, well, what happens if this happens? Get pulled over, this thing happens, and he explained different ways that I can get out of it. And one of those things was like that I learned is that for search and seizure, for example, like if you put your gun or your drugs in the trunk or in the glove compartment, they can't search that without a warrant. And if they also, pro tip, if a cop asks you a yes or no question, you have to say yes for them to do something. If you say no, there's a if they're asking you a yes or no question, that means that no matters. Saying no to them matters. And I've beaten a lot of cases because I said no multiple times to search and seizures,
Mhm.
to search where they've searched my car and they've gotten stuff after I said no, you cannot search my car. And those cases got thrown out by prosecutors because a cop does not know the law as well as the DA does, or or a defense attorney does. So to them, it's like black or white. Like there's drugs in your car. Like, okay, you're guilty. You're gonna go to jail. That's not how the law works though. Like they have to search the car in a legal way. So if they search it in an illegal way, that breaks down the case. And
Mhm.
that's one thing I feel like they should teach this in school, because not enough people understand like you do have the right to say no to a search.
Mhm.
And if you say multiple times and they still search your car, they just broke the law. And
Yeah.
when you go to a plea deal and they're offering you a plea deal and you say, nah, you guys illegally searched my car. Like, why do I need to take a plea? Like, let's go to court, take this to the door, and you're gonna lose. The DA knows they're gonna lose, and they end up dropping the case in pretrial. Like my last case, that's what happened. My case got dropped in pretrial. They said insufficient for making me wait 6 months in jail. I've had like about 5 cases drop within like days after I got arrested for illegal search and seizure. Because LA is a little bit more on point on this because we're overcrowded with gang crimes. We got like hundreds of gangs. We're
Mhm.
overcrowded in Twin Towers and stuff. So
Yeah.
the DA mess around and try to play games with people. Like if they see that there's an illegal search and seizure, they do that right away. They
Mhm.
they they dismiss the case right away, and they tell the officer like, yeah, you broke the law. This is not a legal arrest. Doesn't matter how I could have like kilos of heroin in the car. They'll keep the drugs. They're gonna keep the drugs. Yeah, I'm not getting that back, but I'm not getting case for it. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I always tell people. Like, if a cop asks you a yes or no question, that means they need you to say yes to do the
Mhm.
next thing that they need to get you arrested. So
Yeah.
always say no. No
Yeah.
questions that cop.
Yeah. To anybody who, especially if you're involved in protesting against, let's say, police brutality, and if you get picked up by the police, do not talk. Do not talk. Get yourself a lawyer. I'm gonna repeat myself. Do not talk. Get yourself a lawyer. Even if they try to accuse you of saying something and you want to react, do not talk, because
Yeah,
this system is designed to, because they really want to put you in that for-profit prison. That's what they really want to do ultimately.
yeah. Like, look, there's nothing you're gonna say to a cop that's gonna help you. You're not getting out of that car once they put you in.
No.
You're not gonna get out of there. Like once they put those handcuffs on you, you're going to jail, and the next thing you got to do is wait until you go to court, which is a couple days, and then maybe you can bond out. You know, also another thing with protesters is odds are like if you're a first time offender, they're gonna give you OR, which is out on your own recognizance, which means you don't have to pay a bond at all to get released. So there's nothing for like most of these protesters to be in fear of.
Hmm.
So they should just keep their mouth shut and just wait till they get to court, and they'll probably just get released. And most likely they'll get like some community service, something small. Honestly, it's not protesters get crazy stuff unless they do something super violent, or like I guess they kind of get insane about like messing with the federal property. But yeah, I mean, unless you're a seasoned criminal, you probably shouldn't talk. I did talk to the cops, mostly a lot of expletives, mostly a
Hmm.
lot of like, a lot of my shit was like telling cops, I'm like, bro, I got like 6 grand in my pocket right now. I'm gonna be out in a few hours. I'm like, this is such a waste of time. I'm gonna lawyer up. I'm gonna beat this case. I'm
Hmm.
like, you're gonna be the one left holding the bag. So I'm like, this ain't like you're just wasting your time. Yeah, you might be wasting my money, but I'll have more money at the end of the day, anyways. I would say stuff like that, but I'm not gonna say like anything incriminating. You
Yeah.
know, I think one time I talked to a cop about like whether or not marijuana should be legalized, and they put that in the police report. And I'm like, how is this relevant to my case? All I said is like marijuana, medical marijuana should be legalized, and like they think that's evidence. I'm like, that's not evidence in my case. That's just me making a political view that happens to be during press.
Hmm.
But everything that you say in that car is going to go on the police report. So it is good not to talk
Yeah.
unless you know what you're doing. But realistically, like the only thing you need to say is like no, 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 no. Like the most important word in the English language is no when it comes to being in prison, when it comes to dealing with cops, when it comes to dealing with like the street. Like most important thing to say is no.
Yeah.
Like that's the important word in the English language, and a lot of people don't understand that. But you are right. Keep your mouth shut. Like there's nothing that's gonna help you by talking. It might make you feel good, but it ain't gonna help you.
Yeah.
You won't feel.
Hmm. Back to one of the points about public defenders. A lot of people also don't realize that public defenders are also riddled with cases, such an extremely huge amount of cases. So really, it's in their benefits just to move through them as fast as possible. So if it means that you take the plea deal, then it makes it so that they can get through their caseload as fast as possible.
Yeah, because like most of these public defenders, they're white guys.
Yeah.
They're white guys, you know, from suburban areas, and they look at everyone that they see as guilty, and that kind of informs the way that they handle those situations. Some guys are genuinely good guys, and they want to help, and they genuinely think that these guys are getting over sentenced. It's not necessarily about them thinking people are innocent. It's about them thinking they're getting over sentenced, and that's why they want to get them off. And
Yeah.
and those people are good, and they'll go to bat for you, and they'll give you good advice. You'll know when you have a good public defender when they're telling you go to trial,
Yeah.
because that doesn't benefit them to go to trial. That means they gotta wait extra time to get their money. But for the most part, like all they do is just tell you to take a plea, and like they don't even know like what type of plea you should be taking. They try to push you to take a plea, the first plea, and realistically, like in my case in Florida and all, um, I had a good lawyer that I paid.
Mhm.
There were times like they came at me with like a certain amount of years, and I said no. I'm like, why would I take that amount of years if I'm going to be stuck here anyways for like 6 months, 6 months till trial? So I'm like, I
Mhm.
said no to. And they come back with like 2 years, and I said no to that. And they come back with like a year and a day, and I'm looking at like, well, if I wait till trial, I'm going to do 6 months. If I do a year and a day, I'm going to do 10 months. So I'm only going to do 4 months more. My problem is that I had open cases that were related in in other states. So
Mhm.
I was afraid to admit guilt in this situation because it might be used against me in other states and all. And so that was my main fear. And also, I had a good lawyer that was telling me we can beat this. Like they don't have a good case, and I'm like, are you sure? Because they got a fingerprint in the inside of the box. Like, how is that like not put me in, like a disadvantage and stuff? But he kept saying like, no, you have a good case. And I almost took that year and a day because I was like, it's only going to be 4 more months than what I did. But we took it to the door and we went to pretrial after 6 months. And at pretrial, he came back to me and he said like the DA says that they're dropping your charge. And I'm like, for real? And he's like, yeah. He just said like, you got to leave the county. Don't come back to this county. Sign this and all. And he said like, and I'm like, why are they dropping the charge? And he said basically that insufficient evidence to go to trial. And I was like, okay, I'm like, and the judge asked me like when I went up to the front, he's like, you're not from here, right? I'm like, I used to live here, but yeah, I live in Cali. He's like, well, you got a week to go back to Cali. And I'm like, that's fine with me, honestly. You know, no more jail time. I'll go back to Cali. I ain't trying to come back to Tampa anymore. Like, I have a lot of homies there, but they can come visit me in Cali if they want to see me there so badly. We can FaceTime. That ain't that big of a deal. But
Yeah.
I took it to the door, and you know what? While I was taking it to the door, all my
Mhm.
homies in jail, they're telling me like, "You're dumb. Why are you fighting this case? Like, take the plea deal. When you lose, they'll give you 5 years when you lose and stuff because that's how they get you to take the plea deals. They give you 5 times as much as the plea deal
Mhm.
if you lose the trial. If
Yeah.
you know if you try to like exercise your right to due process that the Constitution grants to you, they
Mhm.
punish you for exercising your constitutional rights, which is
Mhm.
unfair in like levels,
Yeah.
and it never in when it comes to like leftist politics. Like, why aren't we fixing this part? Like, they focus on qualified immunity, and like I could care. I would say most convicts could care less about qualified immunity. To be
Yeah.
honest, like it's not something that is going to affect most of the abuses. Like, I don't think a lot of these cops that shoot black unarmed black people or unarmed brown people, I don't even think they're thinking when they shoot it. It's just like a reaction. So I don't. They get rid of qualified immunity, these shootings are still going to happen.
Yeah.
But even if they get charged, they might end up with a bunch of white jurors that are just going to get them off anyways. So, but
Mm.
what they end is like end this rule that says that if you exercise your right to due process, that you get punished for it with extra time. Like, no, you should get the same amount of time that they offered in plea deal. If that plea deal was good enough to give you before, that
Mhm.
should be what time you get if you lose your case.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a lot more people. They don't do that because if they did do that, everyone's going to fight their case, and that they don't want that because that's extra work. And
Yeah.
extra work for DAs means that you know they can't just like run through like hoods and like just lock up people left and right because you're gonna have a lot of people fighting these cases and they're gonna be overworked and then they're gonna have to make a decision: do we hire on more prosecutors? that they don't want to spend money on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that's my feeling on that. Like I'm not a I could care less about qualified immunity. It's a good thing, but it's not to. I think leftists they over care about this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see this immense change that's going to come from a qualified immunity. It's
Yeah.
not even something that convicts have ever heard of or care about.
Hmm. Yeah. Red said, if everyone demanded a trial, the system crashes. Can't remember who said that, but not mine. Makes sense though. I mean,
They're that
yeah,
right. He ain't lying. Like if
yeah,
everyone demanded a trial, like they could not keep up with all these cases. They would
yeah.
lose evidence probably and not even know. And they would not like. Okay, so I have a homeboy that I grew up with who is in the Los Angeles District Attorney's office. He's a progressive prosecutor, and he's Mexican, and so he has family that are undocumented, and he goes about things way differently. He works under that Gascon guy, the guy who ended cash bail in Los Angeles. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like, and he tells me a lot of good things about him.
Hmm.
Um, and he's told me a lot of good things about him, and he told me like a lot of DAs in that office were upset when he ended cash bail because it means they got to work harder now, and that's a good thing. DAs are upset, to be honest. But that's a good thing.
Yeah,
And Democrats in LA, they're trying to recall this guy because they think like he's making it more dangerous. And I think Democrats are terrible people, anyways, especially ones in big cities. So I'm like, if he's pissing them off, he must be doing something right.
yeah, yeah.
But
Because I mean, the whole ending cash bail, that is basically a system set up to keep people in jail so that the prison industrial complex, also the people that run the telephone systems, the commissary, they all get to make money. And so you're basically going against that industry, by ending cash bail. So makes sense.
yeah, look, they make a ton of money off commissary. Like everything on the commissary list is double what it costs in Walmart. Um,
Yeah.
I strawberry, vanilla, suave.
Hmm.
Um, Shampoo when I was in jail, and when I got out and went to Walmart, I found out this $4 shampoo they were charging me was 99 cents at Walmart, and I'm
Wow.
like, why are they able to get away with this?
Hmm.
I mean, and it's a big industry. Eye care is a big industry,
Hmm.
and where families can like send money. They can go on the website and they can send these eye care packages of food to the
Oh
to the
yeah.
families. JPay is a big industry where
Yeah.
families can like put on people's books and put money on their phones and stuff.
Hmm.
And the phone thing is such a big industry because let's
Oh,
be
it's huge.
real, like they're like I'm calling people in Cali from Florida because that's where all my people are, my
Hmm.
family is. And I'm paying less to call people from Cali than people are paying to call local numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Local numbers that are just like 10 miles away from the county they're paying like double what I'm paying. I'm like, how does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And
It's
it-
expensive.
because they're not expecting someone from Cali to be locked up in Florida, so it's not something they think about. But they know everyone in Florida is going to be locked up in Florida, so they're like, let's try and grift as much money out of these people as possible.
Hmm.
And then Bob Barker, who I think is evil as hell. I don't think
Mm.
it's the same Bob Barker from that stupid show, but that Bob Barker company that makes like toothbrushes and like the toothpaste and like the uniforms and stuff. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
guy, that company is making so much money, so much guap off of like everybody in every jail, and like that. This is something where I think like they shouldn't let private companies handle commissary. Like that should be something that's nationalized.
Yeah.
And you charge whatever you need to charge, upcharge to handle costs, but they shouldn't be making profit off of commissary.
Yeah.
Because the, to be real, the 3 meals that you get in jail or in prison is not enough. It's less than like what a doctor would say is a nutritionist would say is the average amount of calories a grown man should have every
Hmm.
day. So
Yeah.
you need to like have the proper amount of calories and stuff.
Hmm.
So people need to buy commissary to not starve, not go to sleep hungry at night,
Yeah.
and they're just
I've had family members in jail, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've had family members in prison. I wanted to direct another question. It says, "Why are lefties focusing on qualified immunity? Then, what is the motivation? Who is missing from the fight? Is the coalition fighting for it without felons?" Um, to be honest
just
with you,
because
oh, go ahead.
lefties don't. I mean, this is a great question. Lefties don't talk to felons. They don't know felons. I mean, like, look, most leftists that went to college, they grew up in like certain situations that are a lot different than like the situations felons come from. So at
Yeah.
best, they might have members that went through it, but it's not like they're going to talk to them about like how these situations work, or like
Hmm.
it's not like they're like, what do you think about qualified immunity? Now, I can say as a felon that has been in it, like, I care less about qualified. I don't like all. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen if they end qualified immunity. Cops going to get arrested for doing something wrong, and some at least one or two jurors are going to get them off because they look at cops and romanticize cops because of Hollywood and TV and movies and stuff, and they're gonna find some way to figure to make it seem like he was afraid in fear of his life, or like
Hmm.
this is a guy that made a mistake because he panicked or was stressed out.
Hmm.
There's gonna be someone on that jury pool that's gonna screw things up.
Yeah.
The obvious stuff, like what happened with Derek Chauvin, yeah, that obvious stuff will get taken care of.
Hmm.
Like those guys will get guilty and all, but the gray line area is like even if they have if even if they end qualified immunity, like these guys are gonna probably get away with it.
Yeah.
They're gonna lose their jobs, but they're not gonna see like prison time or jail time. The only time that cops really see like prison time and jail time is when they work with the cartels, and like border patrol works with the cartels and they let drugs through, or when these cops like get involved in drug dealing, that's when they see prison time or jail time. They don't even see jail time for beating their wives, which has nothing to do with qualified immunity, because
Yeah.
that's them doing crime as a private citizen, and
Yeah.
they get their homies at the police department help them get away with this stuff.
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so like there is like that, what is that, what do they call it, the blue fraternity, blue brotherhood? There's a
The blue.
whole like cult,
Yeah. There's
blue
a blue
brotherhood.
wall of silence. Blue wall of silence. Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like they say they're good cops. So, well, if you're a good cop, you should be constantly like testifying against these that do police brutality, not sitting there like that one, like those 3 cops that watched George Floyd getting killed, not just standing there and watching him die.
Yeah.
Like, man, you would have
Yeah.
stopped that. Like that's
Yeah.
easy for you to.
Yeah.
You would have pulled your gun, get
Hmm.
your knee off this.
Yeah.
They
You
didn't. You know?
you know what's
No, go ahead.
crazy? You know what's crazy is the statistic. Uh, 40% of police who commit domestic violence admit to it. 40%.
Yeah,
So, like, if that's 40% who admit to it, then how many are actually doing it? You know what I mean?
like
So
80, 90%, honestly.
maybe I don't know, but I mean the fact that 40%, you know, are bold enough to admit that they beat their spouses, that just shows there's something wrong with that system. Period. You know.
Yeah, because I mean, cops have a high level of alcohol abuse, a high level of physical violence. I mean, they're over. I'm sure there's a lot of cops that take steroids. I mean, I would see like these COs and cops all like muscled out, and they look like they take steroids and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And let's talk
you
about
know,
the rape. Let's talk about the rape
well,
kits too, because they don't. There's over 250,000 rape kits that go untested every single year, and it's like, why don't they test the rape kits? Well, probably because some of those rape kits have the DNA of some of the police officers in them, and so yeah, they don't want to be incriminated against that because how many police officers would be arrested or put away because they raped somebody? You know?
yeah, that is like a good point to make. Is like what time is it right
Uh,
now? Okay, I gotta take this on the road. Okay, I gotta go pick up the kids. It's there, but
actually, we're finishing up right now, so we're about
okay,
to.
but I'll just leave it at this. Like as far as the kits go, like
Mhm,
there's no reason why they shouldn't be testing that. Like they should hire more people to test it. There's
mhm.
plenty of money. At least they should like they have a they have military grade equipment in a lot of these police forces, and if they can afford that, they can afford like 40 more employees to test these rape kits. And I'll just leave it at that.
Non-voting felon, everyone. Michael Tanuvasa, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. You gotta come back on. We gotta have more conversations like this.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'll come on anytime.
All right, man.
Thanks
And
for having me.
yeah, thanks everybody. And I will see you all in the next one next Sunday live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day.